Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Tackle Shop Live. Happy birthday, Scott Luckoff. How you doing, buddy? Hope you had a great day. Charles Estley is in the house. WB Jones, how are you doing, buddy? Galen Heathcote, how are you doing, Galen? Hope everything's good there, buddy. Dave Richardson's here. Good evening, brother. Larry Schote. Tim, I hope you love that rod. I'm telling you, how can you not love that rod? That's awesome, Tim. Thanks for stopping in, buddy. Appreciate you. John Pauls is here. Ed M's here. What's up, Ed? Joseph Cascarino is here. How you doing, Joe? Good to see you, buddy. CJ8 Ted, what's up? Danny Poust is here. Dave Jones. Ray Cruz. Oh, man, we got a full house. Bridget, how you doing, Bridget? Good job on that tournament there on Sunday. A hell of a bag of smallies there. Jesse McNutt, Mark Wessner, Robert Bretz. Man, we got a good household. Richie Hall's here. Man, good to see everybody. Keith Howard, what's up, buddy? Casey Hepler, what are you doing, Casey? Best boat for St. Lawrence. I don't know, man. Something big. I think a center console, 32-footer. Center console with quad 300s on the back. Then you can go out in the lake anytime you want. Now you do need a big boat out there, 20 foot minimum. They're all pretty good in it. You just need to get something that has some good freeboard on them. But 2021, if you're buying just a boat for up there, I'd go 21 for sure. And a big long shaft trolling motor, 52-incher. That's where you put those on. Spot lock, all that kind of stuff. So
you just got to remember that guy from Jaws.
Yeah.
I think we're going to need a bigger boat.
I think we're going to need a bigger boat. That's the only problem up there. There was a guy, I forget the guy's name, who actually bought like a 20-foot center console, big, deep feed boat with and he put a long shaft trolling motor on, and that's what he fished out of up there. But he moved up on the lake, and he knew he needed something big. So
I remember not too long ago, they didn't necessarily make you stick with one boat on tour.
Yeah.
So there was guys that were using like deep walleye boats.
Yeah.
And then now you can't.
No, right.
That was interesting.
Well, yeah. I know guys who, buy the big walleye boats for up there, what's that one that's real popular? Can't think of the name of it. But anyway, they're buying those things up like crazy up there. So that's a good boat to have. Mike Reinhold, how are you, buddy? Good to see you. Jake, what do you say, Jake? Michael Jewart, how are you doing? We got a good show for you tonight. We're going to talk about jig finesse fishing. So, you can call it what you want, mop jigging or moping or Demiki rigging. I don't know. They have a million names for them.
What do you call them?
I call it a jig with a grub, or something like that. I don't know. I actually got into it when it was called Demiki rigging. When it first did that. Remember in the classic, they had a classic like 6 years ago, and they were talking about Demiki rigging back then.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of when I started messing with it and fished various places, but mostly our deeper water on the river. You could fish it pretty good that way for suspended smallie. So that's what we did. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Get into the some tips and tricks with that, the rod and the reel and the combination for all that. We're going to get into that. And then of course we're going to talk some tournaments. They're up on 1,000 Islands and they're just racking them up. 29.5 I think is leading the tournament. There was a 28-pound bag caught, 5 or 6 over 25. So we're going to talk about that a little bit and what they're doing up there. And of course we're going to have a great tackle talk section, as we always do. My name is Mike Acord. This is George Acord, and behind the camera is cameraman Nick. We are Tackle Shop Live. We come to you every Thursday night at 7 o'clock. We talk some kind of topic and all about fishing, and we invite all kinds of questions. So don't be afraid to, to give us a holler. I got a couple announcements. Last weekend on Sunday was the tournament for the tournament down on the Chesapeake Bay for Ron Lutz Toot. We had his memorial tournament down there. It was great. They had 31 boats to show up. They caught a lot of fish. 1779 won. Bruce and Ken Casellas and Bruce Reichert won that tournament. They had 1779. Lunker was a 539, I think, but we also had a second lunker of a 520 something. So great tournament, great turnout, great celebration of life for Ron, and it went over really well. So that was a fun time. I was down emceeing, and of course I always have a good time when I have a microphone in my hand. So that was a lot of fun doing that. Also this weekend, Saturday coming up down on the Conowingo Pool is the another open series. The Conowingo Bass Open series is going on. I think it's the 5th tournament of the series. Saturday morning, you guys can go down there and register. It's $100 for the boat, and I think that includes lunker. I think you might have to pay $10 for lunker or something like that. But bunch of great guys, great circuit. The fish are biting like crazy down there. This is going to be a great weekend. The water's up, lots of current. So there's going to be a lot of fish caught, and that starts at 7, or you have to be there at 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock is registration. I think they blast off at 6 or 5:45 if I know those guys.
It's going to be a little after 6.
Yeah, I think it's 6 o'clock.
Unless they let you go out with the headlights on.
Yeah, I think they have it scheduled for 6, but it might be a little after 6 for blast off. So Dave Schindler's in the house. What's up, buddy?
Wow.
That's right. What's up with you?
OG.
Dave Schindler's in the house. Good to see you, Dave. Dean Resch is here. James Hook. No, I never push the right buttons. You know that. I'm always pushing the wrong buttons, but tonight I did pretty good so far. All right. So let's get this show going. We're going to do a little thing we like to call Tackle Talk.
Batting 1,000.
Hmm?
You're batting 1,000.
That's right. Every week we like to talk about tackle, and we talk about new things that come through the shop or something that's really hot. We like to let you guys know about. But tonight it's no different. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. What is going on, George, and what is going on with this here new tackle coming through the doors?
Oh, we got plenty.
It comes every day, man.
Yeah, we got plenty. We're getting stocked up
Bringing
for the fall.
Yep.
We're getting stocked up for the first quarter of 2024.
Love it.
And, we're dishing a little out each week on the show here.
Yeah.
There's a few things that we're going to show you tonight that are not available on the website. So you're going to have to call or stop by. Limited availability. And we're just not prioritizing those web pages. But that doesn't mean you can't have them. So we have some new...
If there's a will, there's a way.
Right. So we have some new Megabass. Of course, we always have new Megabass.
Love that new Megabass.
We love Megabass.
We love Megabass.
We have a wake bait here that I got to take out of the package and show you. This thing is awesome. This is called the Gorham 147F. We got a whole bunch of colors. This one is called GG Indicator Bass. So you have a wake bait, 147 millimeters. There's the lip. You've got the combination of a boot foot with a fin. So, you're going to have that wake bait with that boot foot action. Indicator bass, that chartreuse dot. 2 hook. They call it the ramble tail.
Ramble tail.
It's just rambling.
Rambling.
$59.99. I mean, it's a little pricey, but generally speaking, your wake bait, you're pretty safe on. You're not gonna, you're not losing too many of those. You're gonna want to fish this bad boy on like some heavy braid, like a 50.
Yeah.
Or you could fish this on a heavy fluoro, like a 20-25, right?
George, these big bait stuff is taking off. I mean, it's going crazy. And we had a customer come in last week. I think it was Friday of last week, and he had a tournament going out on Saturday. And he saw that we had gotten the new eye slides in, so he came into the shop and he bought some of the big eye slides, and he went out and fished a tournament, which is what you're going to show here in a minute. And he absolutely crushed them. 21-pound bag of smallmouth on the Susquehanna River, plus a 49-inch muskie, giant muskie on it. And his partner in his boat stopped fishing and just watched him because he never seen anything like it ever. He was just like fishing these great big baits, and these smallmouth were just annihilating it. And but my point is that a lot of guys are starting to wake up their eyes to it. There's a lot of guys looking into this, and it's for anybody that's not throwing them right now, I guarantee you in 6 months you're going to be like buying them like crazy, and by spring of next year you're going to be throwing them for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, the Swimbait, culture in the United States and bassin is and has been huge. I mean, it's like a cult. I think they got a secret handshake and everything.
It hasn't been like really big here in the Northeast though, but but the last couple of years it's been gaining big time.
Yeah, it's it's like any other type of fishing. It's if that's your deal, you're going to get all in on it because it's exciting. You catch big fish, you see a lot of big fish, you're anticipating big fish. And, if you're cool with that commitment to that type of fishing, and you get into that lifestyle and that type of fishing,
it's happening.
This is all about it. There's a bunch of Swimbait guys that frequent the shop here. And they've pushed us to continually meet their tackle needs. It wasn't that long ago when there wasn't a lot of Swimbait fishermen. In the last 10 years, it's exploded.
Last 5 years, it's really exploded.
And we've just tried to keep pace with what everybody's after. Rod wise, reel wise, line wise, knowledge wise, bait wise, and it's a fun way to fish.
What'd you have, Nick?
Oh, that bait that George went over first. We were kind of holding it off as far as the video, but we're gonna post up a video so you can see it in action.
Oh, sweet.
That way you can see what we're talking about with the wake bait.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Megabass shoot that?
Yep.
Yeah. So, probably the first, I don't know if I should say it like that, but one of the most sought after early glide baits was the Megabass eye slide. Came in different sizes. The 187-ish was the most popular. And I don't know what exact millimeter it was, and I don't remember, but it's pretty close to this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so they took it, they kind of let it go away, and they've been modifying it, redesigning it. So they're starting to bring it back. And the next bait I want to show you on Tackle Talk is the iSlide 187. It's called the intermediate. Now that refers to the sink rate. Okay. There will be, I'm sure, a slow sink. I'm sure, as time progresses, and I'm sure that these will become more available, in the future. Probably, this fall, next season, because they're coming back into this this bait style. They took it, they had it for years. They're made some adjustments to it, and now it's back. So this thing's beautiful. Comes in a bunch of colors, $59.99, which is not out of line for a quality bigger, not big, but bigger glide bait. Very nice, bunch of colors in stock. Again, apologize, they're not up on the website. The quantities are so limited that we just feel like by the time we devote the time to build the pages, they're going to all be sold. So you can call us, you can stop in. There are also a few Chad Shads in stock. We kind of let you know this. We've talked about the Chad Shad. We just let you know every now and again when we have them in stock. Got a few colors, handful of each, nothing huge. Ghost trout and threadfin. So there's some of those in stock.
Sweet. Kyle Wrigley's here, and that's the guy I was telling you about catching all those big smallies. He's agreeing 100%. And he made a commitment. That's just what I'm saying. He made a commitment to it, and the fish that he's catching is just staggering good, and really is all in on it, and fishes it all the time, and has been catching some really great fish and having some great success on his tournaments with them. So pretty cool that way. Robert Bretz is here, South Jersey fisherman. How you doing, man? Good to see you. Frank Duchette is here. How you doing, Frank? What else you got, George?
I got some more Megabass.
Nice.
We're going to go the other way now. We're going to go to 3/16 of an ounce. So I've got another BFS bait for you. This is called the Shadding X.
Flip that back a little bit.
R62.
Yeah, flip it so the bait flips. Isn't there a game like that where you have to flip it right? There you go, by God. That's a good picture. Real sleek shad profile with a bigger lip on it.
3/16 of an ounce suspend. So you can crank this down, let it sit there, twitch it a little bit. I foresee it being a fantastic cold water bait, particularly when those shads start dying because the water gets so cold, or depending on your fishery. I mean, even into the upper 30s. Shadding, tons of colors in stock.
Yeah.
And they're new BFS bait to go along with all the other BFS baits.
Bridget, you're 100% correct on that. 20 to 25 pound fluoro is your best line for your glide baits. You'll see guys throwing, mostly in that range, 20, 25 most of the time. However, there is some guys running on 17. Just saying.
Yeah, I guess if you like to lose baits and challenge yourself, you can go throw it on anything you want.
Yeah, throw it on anything you want, but
probably could throw it on a 5.6 pistol grip Hank Parker bait casting rod with an Abu 5500C and 15-pound Berkeley big game, if that's what makes you happy.
George, I'm over there thinking right away, yeah, you could throw it on a pistol grip too, if you say.
Well,
There's absolutely a 0.0 benefit to throwing it on light line.
Well, I know, but you're just saying there's guys going to try the lighter line just like they do real super light line for drop shot. I mean, who would ever think that you would drop shot with 4-pound test, and these guys are freaking doing it.
Right, but we're throwing a 2.5 ounce glide bait here on a 7, 11, 8 foot extra heavy rod.
All I said was I kind of disagree with you here because all I said was 17 pound.
Yeah.
Didn't say anything lighter than 17.
Well, spool up.
See what you started, Bridget?
20 to 25. Kanata +1. So the Kanata obviously came out a few years ago. It's a big, tall profile, big jerkbait. It's got a thin body, flat side, tall profile, big old aggressive. It was a jerkbait that Brandon Palaniuk did his damage on in that early season. I believe it was Santee Cooper tournament when he was cracking giants. And so now they have a +1 version.
I think he was even saying he wished he had a deeper one.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's why they brought it out.
Getting down to those deeper brush piles.
Yeah, well, these big giant baits don't go as deep.
Yeah.
Because of all the resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably going to get it in a standard jerkbait range.
Yeah. So, probably.
Bunch of colors.
What are they rated to?
From super realistic, 3.2 meters max.
Hey, maybe you guys know this. Do you know what gear he was throwing with that? Is it like the regular jerkbait kind of gear, or I'm thinking 10 pound? Or
No. They don't even sell 10 pound in South Carolina.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not allowed to launch your boat on Santee Cooper with anything under like 12 or 15.
Yeah.
You can't do hand-to-hand combat in those kind of conditions.
No, John Kopp, tonight's beer sponsor. We appreciate it.
Well, we got Rick from Bull Bay Rods here.
Yeah, Rick.
Rick's a frequent viewer of the show. Yep. And Bull Bay Rods is in Florida, and he drove up to see his family in Middle Pennsylvania. And Rick brought us by some koozies.
And some 5-star there, Johnny Kopp.
And some 5 stars. And we want to thank you, Rick, if you're watching the show, for taking the time to think of us enough to swing by and supply us with some of our favorite beverages.
Also,
and we are koozie.
Yeah.
I mean, we're koozie freaks.
Gave us some koozies.
We got some nice koozies. There we got a koozie, Nick. You can take yours home with you, Nick. Add it to your personal collection at the house.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You got to ring the bell, right, George?
Yes,
you got to ring the bell.
We also got a cake today from some customers. They came in and said, "Hey, man, we got some really good information from you guys on Saturday." And we went over and wrecked the Smallies. And I said, "Oh, you must have been talking to me." And they said, "Yeah, matter of fact, we were." But anyway, we turned them on some smallmouth fish, and she brought us in this cake. It was called a Kentucky butter cake. And I'm telling you right now, it is off the charts. George and I were down to Alabama, and what was the name of that butter cake down there? Pie or something?
I don't know.
They had some kind of pie down there. It's a southern, that type of that style of cake and pie or whatever it is. It's from down there, and it was really good. Some back here, Nick, before you leave, you take a hunk with you. So we thank you guys for that. That was really nice of you to come by and say thanks for the good information. That was great. Thank you, Rick, for the beer.
16 pounders.
16 pounders. He was really going after something there.
All right.
So
George, what else you
have there?
I have stand by.
Stand by. Stand by, everyone. Johnny Cop. No, that's not.
I have the new Curado.
Mm.
The 200M. Next generation after the 200K. Right hand only. 6'2", 7'4", 8'5" ratios. 200 size reel. Just if you own a 200K, that's what this feels like. But we have the MGL 3 spool. So now you have your MGL 70, you have your MGL 150, and now you have your standard size MGL 200. All the goodies.
I think complete now. I think complete. Unless they come up with some kind of crazy thing to put on it, it is going to be a complete reel for everything. You know, and finally now the casting is going to be better than anything ever. So I don't think they need to do anything else to it.
Well, I mean, the MGL 150, which has been out for a while, had the MGL spool, the 70. Mm-hmm. So now they got the 200 size, which is kind of the standard Curado size. And now, you know, the big deal with the 200 going to the new style is the MGL spool,
right?
Super light spool, and that's a big noticeable difference in your casting. So if you're not sure what an MGL spool is, it's just a super light spool. And when you have a super light spool, your reels cast very efficiently. So now you have that on your Curado 200M. You have the cross carbon drag washer, which is spectacular, super smooth, never sticks. Any of you with a carbon drag washer, you know what I'm talking about. Micro module gear, we've gone over that about 1 million times. Real small, super hard to see. Real small gear teeth, lots of them. So that's your drive gear. Mm-hmm. That's going to engage with your pinion gear, which turns your spool. So more teeth engaging at one time is basically what micro module does. Very, very good design.
Lots of horsepower in that reel.
Yeah, and anti-rust bearings. So if you're a tidal water fisherman, or if you like to maybe do a little backwater fluke fishing or whatever, you know, these bearings will not rust. They are a coated, they are a modified steel, modified stainless, coated bearing. They don't rust. Anti-rust bearing, the ARB and Shimano reels has been around for years.
Best bearing out there.
You know, we're in a tidal water area here. We have lots of customers for years have been fishing ARBs. They don't rust. So we really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So $199.99. We're excited about it. Righties only right now. Lefties will be, you know, probably next month-ish.
Yep.
So check those out. You can check them out on the site, or if you get a chance to come by and feel them,
you'll be buying one.
You know, it just
super nice.
Plus, you can compare the different sizes. You know, you can feel the quality there, and it's a good looking reel too.
Mm-hmm.
And also from Shimano, this is kind of like a little Shimano segment here. They have we have been delivered.
Yeah.
Some more of the iCast releases on the Curado rods.
Beautiful.
So if you recall, we talked about the BFS rod from the X-Pride family. Well, they did the same rod in Curado. You know, the Curado rod, for those of you who are not familiar, is a high power X with a infinity tape wrap, which is a carbon wrap, you know, in lieu of a bunch of thick coating to keep the rod round under load. CI4 reel seat, freaking beautiful rods.
And this is that.
And that's BFS rod right there.
That's sweet,
so I mean,
sweet little extra fast taper.
The Curado series of rods is pretty big. I mean, there's a lot of models. So when they told us they were going to add 5 more models, we're like, I ain't got what is up with, like, why do we need 31 models of a rod?
I kind of did too, but then then when you start messing with these things and you figure out what they are,
yeah, my point exactly.
It was like they filled the niche for
my
stuff.
point exactly. After all those rods, here they come along with 5 more models that.
What's that, Nick?
Put like serious hole filling.
Yep.
5 models that really address a certain need. So here we have a 7.2 medium heavy plus.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is the
right
glass.
Right. That was the next word out of my mouth.
Yeah, but I said no because it's 7.3.
7.3?
Yeah.
Oh, 7.3. My bad.
7.3.
Well, I even have that written down like that. Medium heavy plus glass. And what's cool about this rod, for those of you who like to fish a glass chatterbait rod,
this is it.
This is it, and I mean it's it.
It's right on.
Spot on. It's, you know, we've had numerous glass chatterbait shows here with all different kinds of varying opinions. And, you know, we fished a ton of different models for that reason. This is as good as anything we've laid our hands on. So if you like a glass rod, now it does have the infinity tape wrap on it. So you do get a little bit of that carbon kind of feel, the taper, but it's glass. And if you recall, you know, when we did our deep dive in glass chatterbait rods, your hookup ratio is as close to perfect as you're going to get. But this one, being this plus action, it's got enough backbone to pop those baits out of the grass, which has always been a big bone to pick with us. You know, yes, we like the glass hookup ratio in the open water. Always had great hookup ratios in open water. But, you know, we've had some mixed results in heavier, like, aquatic vegetation. So that rod right there, check it out. That rod is $199.99. So, you know, it's not terrible in price. So now we have a 7.3 medium heavy plus graphite. So it's 7.3 medium heavy plus. So you know that what they're getting at here is a tweener, right? So you're talking a frogging rod here. Perfect frog rod. You know, you're always a little like on your frog rod. You know, you're happy with it, but what if I was to build this thing is spot on? Or how about if you're pitching into like thicker like clump grass and you don't want a big flipping stick, or you want the versatility of doing multiple things with one rod, or you're fishing big fish water, you know, that rod is versatile enough. If you're on like one of these famed big fish lakes, throw chatterbait on that rod, frog on that rod. You know what else that rod's cool for? Throwing a mag draft. Absolutely spot on mag draft rod. You like to skip boat docks with a mag draft? You like to pick shoreline apart with a mag draft? That rod is money. Yeah. 7.3 extra heavy. Okay.
Yeah. This one here, nickel. This one here, right here, nickel. You'll definitely.
So this is what's known as an East Texas grass rake.
You can definitely get them out of whatever you want with this thing.
This is an East Texas grass rake.
It's rated. What's nice about this thing? It's kind of cool because it's rated 17 to 25, 5/8 to 2.
Well, and you know what I like about it? Not only can I
it's got
pitch
a little bit of tip on it.
Yeah, but not only can I pitch like really thick grass, but I can take that glide bait that we talked about.
Yeah.
And I can roll cast shoreline with this thing.
Yeah.
I can roll cast boat docks, and I can roll cast laydowns in the spring of the year when they're pre-spawn.
Really good
I'm
versatile rod.
I'm making 30-foot casts to tight targets. And if I live in a spot where it's big and gnarly, that rod fits right in.
Well, it's nice. It's 7.3, so it's not like a 7.6 or 7.8, heavy punching rod. But if you get in the bind and or if you don't do a lot of punching and you don't want to buy one of those rods, this is a rod you can have in your boat that you can do a lot of other things with. But then if you get in that situation where you got to put an ounce and a half on to punch through some heavy grass, that rod will do it for you. So it's it's definitely a niche rod, and it's one that can also all-purpose for some other stuff, and it's not like just a big, long, heavy rod for punching grass. If you're not into doing all that all the time. But like George said, you can throw swim baits and stuff like that.
I like the rod. I'll tell you, when I wrote the order for those rods, it was sight unseen, so I ordered a smaller quantity. When I saw the rod, I tripled my order quantity because I think the rod is just.
We got a lot of them.
There's so many people that want a heavy cover rod that they can do multiple things with.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have a shop full of heavy cover rods, but they're all long. This rod will do hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
And, 10 other things. Right?
Right on.
Great rod, man. And not for nothing, $199.99.
That is a really good price for what you're getting. You start looking at the graphite and the high power X and what that's all about, and the great accurate cast you're going to make because the blank doesn't flop over on you.
It's a comfortable spend. I mean,
I think it is. I think it is.
I mean, if I had your money, I'd buy bigger ones. But I mean,
if I had your money, I'd probably only be able to buy a Zebco 33.
If for a guy that wants to upgrade a few outfits a year, that's not bad.
I think it's you're not missing much with it. You're not, I like to say that when you get a rod that's priced right and you fish it and then you feel it, you'll see that you're not missing a whole lot. You're not saying, man, I wish I would have bought that $400 something or other. You're not missing that much.
It's a nice rod.
It's a great rod.
Yeah.
Here is the last one, George, on your list, which is the spinning rod, only spinning rod that was new.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because normally when Shimano brings out, and not to mention everybody else on planet Earth, normally when they bring out a new rod line, 75% of the models you just plug in that you have to have. You have to have a 6.8 medium spinning rod. You have to have a 7 or 7.1 medium spinning rod. You have to have a medium heavy spinning rod. You have to have a long spinning rod. Well, when they brought this series out, they didn't do a 6.8 medium spinning rod. They did a 7, a 7.1, and a longer rod. They did lighter rods, but they didn't do this rod. And this rod is
your rod.
Especially for like what we're going to, what some of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight with the Elite Series on the St. Lawrence River with Jig Head Finesse. It's kind of like that rod.
It's that rod.
And a lot of people prefer a 6.8 rod to a 7 or a 7.1 rod.
Super light.
That's it. It
cuts way down on the weight.
That CI4 reel seat's very sensitive. Mm-hmm. Beautiful rods. That one's $179.99.
That's a great price.
$20 less, Nick.
What up, Kirk? How you doing, bud? Glad you made it, pal. Sean Taylor's in the house. That's right. $199 is a hell of a buy there. Great value.
That's gonna be it. That's gonna be it for our tackle talk segment.
Right on.
I mean, I like doing that segment. I hope you guys like listening to it and watching it. I love preparing for it and doing it.
These guys are all tackle junkies. They love it.
Next week they love it. Next week we're gonna go. Everything's gonna be like this.
What?
Real small.
What?
Yeah, I got cool small things for next week. Yeah. Can't wait. I can't wait.
Getting in the fall and you're talking small. Ooh.
Well, actually we're running into September. September starts with S, which rhymes with sucks. So you might need to finesse a little bit.
Yeah, you do. Definitely do. We always rush it in
I
September.
did. What do you got, Nick? What's new in your world?
I'll tell you, I'm just, it's all good. I'm surprised Mike has a voice left. I mean, he was announcing over the weekend.
Boy, ain't that the truth.
Wow, we had a fun time down there, man.
And George was slamming the smallies.
Yep.
Then I watched tournament after tournament.
Yeah.
That tournament ran into Monday.
Yeah.
This tournament started. Man, it's so exciting. I don't know how George.
Well,
yeah.
What are we going to do next week?
I know. Well, guess what, George? There's something green coming.
Yeah.
Ring the bell.
Yeah, I know,
And
but
it ain't the Jets.
But live
It is the Jets.
Live football is like, a dream, but live bass fishing, and we only got 3 more days.
Well, that's not true because we can go do our own live bass fishing.
Right. We can, and we will.
Right.
We will. So, we're watching these tournaments, right? Last week, Champlain.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
This week, St. Lawrence so far started off a little rough, but a couple things stood out to me before we get into talking, tournament talk or anything like that. A couple things stood out to me that again, I'm always trying to glean a little knowledge, and that is in those deep, clear bodies of water, forward-facing sonar has opened up the lake. So now, the Champlain tournament talked to me. I've fished Champlain a bunch. Now we are on not only on the outer rim, but we are now turning the boat around from the outermost piece of cover. We don't need cover. We don't need structure. We need bait. We don't need cover. We don't need structure. We need bait. All you have to do is find bait. Now, why is that important? Well, September, as I just said, is coming up. And September starts with S, which rhymes with sucks. September is a tough month in most fisheries. Not up north. We're not talking about Fantasy Island. Or if you're on a flowing river, it doesn't seem to affect matters at all. But, your typical, reservoirs and lakes, particularly the man-made, not the naturals, and they're tough. It's a transition time. It's still summer-like weather, but it's shorter days. Plus, if you're on a shad body of water, you've got unbelievable amounts of bait. The scenario. And you know what? Next month, which is coming up quick, we're going to do a show on this. But my point is, that same scenario plays on every lake around. I don't care where you are.
Yeah.
I do not care where you are. I don't care what kind of lake it is. Well, if you're sitting there saying, well, I don't have any smallmouth in my lake, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Bass become pelagic.
Yeah.
And they relate to bait. They don't care about cover, and they do not care about structure. We are so programmed, correctly so, to paying attention to ledges, humps, and then we're so programmed to paying attention to shell beds, grass, rock, that it takes a little bit of a mental adjustment to now say, yes, that's all good, but that's where everybody fishes. What about all the other fish that aren't there? And, I'm just here to tell you, this is opening up
a can of worms.
a whole new lake.
I like how you put that, actually. You know what's interesting about what you said, though, George, is as we fished local lakes, local bodies of water, if you were successful and you did fish cover, and the structure and the cover it's on it, did I get that right, George? You knew that the fish were not always set up on it. But you knew that if you hit that spot or that area enough times throughout the day, at some point, those fish were going to move up onto it.
To feed.
But now...
feed.
Yes. Now you can intercept them before they get there. And that is very interesting. But it was also interesting what you just said, Mike. It opened up a what?
A can of worms.
Oh, yeah. You can tell something's coming.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal.
It really has.
Here's the deal with and where this train of thought's going. So these guys were fishing open water aggressively on their trolling motor on high, scanning for either bait or fish. And the fish were just swimming around. They were literally not, they were suspended sometimes over 60 to 80 feet of water, just following bait or just waiting for bait to come by, or in little wolf packs or singles or doubles looking for bait. So think about your lake and think about how you fish your lake. You're fishing a grass line. You're fishing a contour. You're fishing a ledge. You're fishing something that your mind can relate to, that has cover on it, that generally will hold fish when they are there. The point is, when they're there. When they're not there, they're out in the abyss. So if you have forward-facing sonar on your boat, it becomes a much easier task. If you don't have forward-facing sonar on your boat, it becomes
Impossible.
Something that you don't want to do.
Yeah, you got to fish the structure.
But if you do have it, turn your boat around when you're and my thought process is, when you're not catching anything anyways, put your trolling motor on high and start scanning the middle of your lake. Just drive around and just pivot your trolling motor like this and just start scanning. And anything you see that's not attached to the bottom is something you want to do. You want to go see. And that's what this is all about.
And you know what's funny about it is, some people have had forward-facing sonar now for 3-4 years?
Sure.
And what people originally did was they would go up to the structure and the cover, scan around, see if the fish were there. Oh, they're not there. Next spot.
Yeah.
Now this is really just a game changer.
Well, listen. It's easy for us to sit here and say this.
Oh, absolutely.
What I'm going to tell you is that you're going to stop too much. You're going to fish on those fish too much, and you got to understand, a lot of things about it. And the key thing is even if you just see fish, if there's no bait around them, they're not active fish. You got to find the bait. George keeps saying it. You got to find the bait. You got to find the bait, and that's what you got to do.
Yeah, but sometimes you can catch the loners, the onesies, twosies.
I haven't had great success with that.
Well, but you put a cast on them.
Oh, I do. I put a cast on them,
Yeah.
but they're so hard to catch.
Well, guess what? Hit the trolling motor button and keep on looking.
Right, exactly.
Baby.
That's what I'm saying. We don't, and 90% of the people will stick on those fish that they see. They see them moving around. It's an awesome sight. It's really an awesome sight. And you just spend too much time on them. So when I say it opens up a can of worms, it opens up a can of worms. There are going to be people out there just going around, man, just fishing these fish and not getting bit and going, what in the hell is going on? But you got to just keep doing it until you find the right fish. And then when you see what those fish are doing when you're catching them, you'll understand the ones you can catch.
Well, and the other thing is to remember, this is not like the whole season. This is, first of all, the fish are set up on a pure summertime pattern. And second of all, it's later in the summer. They move out from spawning. They spend a lot of time on traditional areas. They eventually set up on a summer pattern. And then they become pelagic when there is a lot of bait. If there's not a lot of bait, they don't really go that way. But if there's a lot of bait in your lake, which most lakes that have gizzard shad in them, there's a lot of bait.
Fuentes fished a tournament in the spring on Lake Fork, I think it was, and he was fishing a channel swing, and it was basically that type of fishing. He was forward face sonar fishing in the spawn, pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn period.
Yeah,
And the only way he found him was by forward facing.
if you really look at
Standing timber
standing timber,
in the abyss.
Yeah, in the abyss.
if you really look at the way the tournament's set up for Major League Fishing or Bassmasters, there may be one tournament that they have scheduled in the year where I don't think it'll play.
Mm-hmm.
But you're gonna, like they said, the one kid that won the last week's tournament.
Yeah,
They said he literally did it every tournament.
sure. I mean, look at the guy who won Okeechobee.
Yeah, who was that?
That kid, that he was a rookie, and he won it in the Okeechobee River or something like that.
Well, 4 of the tournaments this year, I guess, in the Bassmasters.
That was all
were
forward
won
facing,
by
Tartar.
rookies.
Yeah, that was all forward facing sonar.
Well, the other interesting thing is
in a river, in a place where nobody.
that was Tyler Rivette.
Tyler Rivette. That's it.
He's not a rookie.
Huh?
He's not a rookie.
He wasn't a rookie.
He's not a rookie. He's about at least a third-year Elite Series pro.
Well, whatever.
But he went up in the river.
He did. He went where nobody else in the world ever
And
goes.
in Florida,
Smoked
and
him.
fished fish that were relating to bait. Oh, wait a minute. Is this what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
middle of the river. And what was the bait they were relating to? Do you guys remember?
No.
Crappie.
Eat crappie.
They was relating to Mr. Crappie's crappie.
So
They're up there eating crappie.
yeah,
And guess what he caught him on? In the middle of the river.
jerkbait.
A jerkbait.
Yeah.
So when they're just in the open water, nothing else matters. The only thing that matters is the presence of active fish,
Yeah. Bait.
which generally means bait.
Bait.
But you could be in 60 feet of water and throw a Vision 110 because your fish are only in like 9 foot of water.
Well, that not only that, but like a body of water where there's so much bait, you got to get the right type of bait. You got to know what kind of. And that's what I'm saying. The can of worms the worms are just crawling out all over.
Them son of
bitches are all over the table.
This takes our
Falling onto the floor. It's just craziness.
This takes our everyday lake that we grew up fishing, that we love to fish, that we know every pebble and rock on.
Yeah.
And it turns it into a vacation getaway. I feel like we should watch National Lampoon Vegas Vacation or something, man. I mean, because we're going to a new lake.
Yeah.
Because nobody fishes the middle of the lake.
There's people that do, but they've always done it on a brush pile. They always done it on a rock pile.
No, that's not the conversation.
And I'm just saying. There's people that have done that over the years, but they've done it in different fashions where they had waypoints on something.
Well, put a waypoint on a moving school of fish because they're about 100 feet from where they are every time you cast.
Well, that was the neat thing about Champlain was those guys were rolling around on high speed chasing fish.
Yeah, I got to ask you guys something though, and you always need a little controversy. And Mike had said worms are everywhere.
Yeah.
My question for you guys is, it opens up the lakes that George, you said it right. It's a brand new lake.
It's a brand new lake.
But here's my question: Can you compete the old way?
Sure, you can. 75% of the season.
Well, I gotta go back to. I disagree with George because I have to talk about my latest buddy, Slick Johnson
of the Alabama Bass Council.
Slick Johnson wins some money. Let me tell you, he just won $100,000 in a tournament down on Wheeler or one of those lakes down there, and he fishes shell beds. That's what he does. And he runs up on them, and he throws a Carolina rig, and he throws a jig, and he throws a crankbait, and then he leaves, goes to another spot. You know, if they're there to bite, he catches them. If not, but he's old school. Slick Johnson's one of them old school guys. Been around forever. And he's still winning $100,000. And his partner was one of the guys who won the Classic so much, the Abu Garcia Pro.
Jordan Lee.
Yeah, that was his partner in the back of the boat, and he won 50 doing it. So yes, I disagree with George that that's the only way you can win tournaments, because it's not. You can still win old school style. And
No, but I guess we were talking about last week.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not the only way to win tournaments. 75% of the year. What was it? So before we went to the Northern Swing, the 2 tournaments that led up to that, half of them guys didn't even turn their forward-facing sonar on.
Oh yeah, Sabine River and
Saginaw Bay. They were fishing in the Tulies for largemouth.
oh right.
They didn't even run forward-facing sonar. They were in 3 foot of water flipping with.
Wait a minute. Saginaw Bay was the one for the Bass Pro Tour?
Yeah.
That was one with forward facing.
I'm not talking about the winner. I'm talking about most of the people.
Yeah, most of them. Yeah.
I can guarantee you 80% of the boats in that tournament, I watched every second of that tournament, 80% of the boats in that tournament had blocks of wood under their trolling motors, and their forward-facing transducers were 8 inches out of the water because they were flipping nothing. So we're not talking about changing the game. We're talking about the time of year.
Yeah,
I
understand that.
The end of summer when these fish
I don't
are
give false
offshore.
hope to a lot of people on here that are saying, "Oh my God, I gotta have forward facing."
You don't have to.
There's still old school stuff that you can do.
What happens when everybody goes out in the middle of the lake and starts driving around in circles, playing bumper boats, looking for schooling fish?
And you know what I think that's going to happen?
The whole entire shoreline's open.
Yeah.
Do you really think? Do you
Well,
really think all those fish
yeah.
leave all those fish that are on the shore leave the shore? We're talking about big schools here, or big fish that are out cruising bait.
I read an article about migration of fish. They tagged a bunch of fish, and I think that was in like the Carolinas somewhere. They tagged these fish, and they followed them for a whole year. And this one fish that they followed spent close to 3 months on one stump, never moved.
And she was a big one.
And she was a big one, like an 8-pluser. Stayed on it one
She's
stump.
probably resting up.
Stayed on one stump, but the stump was almost in the middle of the lake on a flat. And it turns out that a lot of these fish that are pushed off the bank from bank fishing go out on these flats, and they roam these flats. But what's happening is, as more people move out on these flats and the boat traffic, trolling motors, sonar sound, it starts to push the fish even further out or into something else.
Yeah, they adapt.
They move to something else. So the more people that go out after these fish is what we're saying is, the more trolling motor noise, the more sonar noise, the more these fish that were out there that could handle just the boat traffic, a boat motor going over top of them, that didn't seem to bother them. But when you stopped and you put a trolling motor in the water and you had all that noise going on, that's when the fish were actually, you know what I'm saying? That's when they were affected. So, how long of this is it going to last until the fish maybe get pushed back into the shore, and go back in there and feel safer because there's more guys out. So it's just interesting to follow the what's going on with the fish, but there's definitely a proven scientific facts that they moved offshore. A lot of them did.
Well, the fish that we're talking about, the fish that we're focusing on are fish that have moved offshore because of it being late summer and the presence of bait.
Yeah, I know, but
they've cruised out, like those fish that those guys were catching on Champlain in June weren't there.
Yeah, but I don't believe that. I don't think so. I don't think those fish would have done that anyway. I think what they used to do was they used to go from the shallow water and they used to go to points, and the points had structure on them. And guys like David Fritz would go out there and they would fish that deep water with those crankbaits and annihilate them and dominate the circuit.
Well, those fish were spawning in June on Champlain.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying those fish that they're catching on Champlain last week weren't there in June.
Yeah, I know.
They were up spawning, and then they started their move back out.
They might, they might, but all I'm saying is that 20 years ago, those fish didn't have to go all the way out there because the bait stayed in on the points, and they didn't have the pressure on those points like they did, late at a later point that pushed them out even further.
I think you had that population that you're talking about, and I think there was that population
exactly, but
that was never touched.
Right, but those fish that they were catching on those points, like David Fritz, I'm saying that time frame when David Fritz was winning tournament after tournament after tournament, and Mark Davis was winning tournaments and all that kind of stuff, and they were fishing that offshore structure, right? Is that what we call it, structure or cover?
Well, I mean, cover is something like a tree or a rock.
Right.
Structure is something like a hump or a ledge.
Oh, so yeah, so structure, with cover on.
And Bill Dance gets upset when you use those terms wrong.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, Mike. What you're saying is true, but it's not. It's only one side of the pillow.
Yeah, but you can't go in there now and win tournaments on that stuff.
Not necessarily true. Now, last week on Champlain,
that's what we're saying.
Last week on Champlain, no, you couldn't win in there, but a lot of fish were caught on traditional rock piles, shoals, and not for nothing. A lot of these, if you remember how we started this conversation, we talked about being on those outer edges of those, like say a shoal. Being on that outer edge where, your boat's in really deep water and you're fishing the last little bit of that break line. And those fish moved because bait came by. Turn around and begin your search there. So it's not one or the other. It's both. It's an either or. However, what we are saying is that no matter where you are, for the most part, when you get into the end of the season, after that summer pattern has been set up for a while and that bait populations rise up, if you're having a gizzard shad lake, you can have multiple spawns of shad, and now there's just a mass of shad. Or herring, same way. That's where those fish are. Now, a lot of people don't have a problem agreeing with the herring lakes. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, well, herring are known to cruise around, and the bass are known to follow them. Well, a herring is a shad, bro.
Well, but like I said, those guys are still winning tournaments on traditional structure with cover on it.
Absolutely.
Rock piles, brush piles on points. Sandbars, end of sandbars. They're fishing structure that is structure they've been fishing for 25 years.
Absolutely. Go to Lake Hartwell this weekend and watch what happens when they blast tournament off.
Yeah.
There's 1,500 points on Lake Hartwell. Every one of them gets hit 10 times.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a couple boats out there in the middle of the frickin' lake trolling around like madmen, shining their scope.
You know what's interesting about that, George? So if you're fishing cover, you got a grass bed. You go there one day, you catch your limit. You go there next day, you hope you can catch your limit. With the way they were fishing, and we all know Champlain is a huge body of water.
Huge.
When they did the map at the Bassmaster tournament, it made it look real small, but it's huge.
Yeah.
I just wonder how close, like what's his name? Brian Smith, I think. When he would go to his spot each day, if it is a spot,
it was a starting point.
Yeah, you got to find those fish. That's really interesting.
It was a starting point.
It was George and I were laughing because one of the competitors has a trolling motor that sounds like
Oh, it was horrible.
Somebody turning on a vacuum cleaner,
Really?
like right next to your ear.
And he had that sucker on high.
Yeah, and he pulls up to his spot, and his area, where he was catching him, puts his trolling motor in the water, and he starts scanning around, and he instantly turns this thing on super high, and the fish are gone.
He's like, fish are gone.
Fish are gone. He's
I'm going to go that way. I think they might have went that way.
He's like, and this trolling motor is like, woo, it's just super loud.
And and his boat's doing this.
Yeah, and his boat's just going around there like this.
And I don't know if you noticed it on Sunday, semi-final Sunday. I don't know if you noticed it. If you were watching really, really close, people, Cody Huff, who was getting it done, he turned around, he threw his rod down. He didn't set it down. He threw his rod down. He said, my batteries just turned off. Because when you have lithium batteries and you get to a certain point, they just turn off.
Yeah.
You can't use them anymore because they went.
I'm sure we all experienced it with weed whackers and freaking.
They go into slow. It was luckily it was at the end of the day.
2:00.
He had about a half an hour to fish, but
Yeah.
guess what? In that half an hour, his competitors that he was duking it out with caught big fish, and he was done.
He was done.
But I just thought it was interesting. Like I fished a lot of tournaments where you go to that cover, and you think they're going to be there, and a lot of times they are, or they aren't, or whatever. But those guys are like hoping that those fish are where they were.
Well, and
they're never going to be on a lake like that.
It's kind of crazy.
And can't we all relate to that?
But that, like our boy,
where did they go?
Our boy Greg De
Turn
Palma.
around.
our boy Greg De Palma, he was fishing a tail end of an island, way out off a tail end of an island, and whatever structure he was fishing out there.
That's all chunky rock and sand patches on the end of those.
But that's
islands.
the starting point, because that's really where they usually are.
Or high percentage.
The high percentage
Right.
of fish are there.
Right.
And then you go there and start, and then from there, what we're saying is they were going out from that. That's usually the farthest out that we fish.
Start somewhere.
That's usually the farthest out we fish.
We never did that.
And we never turned around and went
in the abyss.
Now we're doing that, and it's
Crazy.
funny. It's kind of funny to me and Mike, because when we first got into forward facing, we're shallow water guys. So most of the places we fish, we're trying to adapt this forward facing to. But there's a few places we fish that aren't shallow. And one of the first places we went to, it was post spawn, and we're playing with our graph, trying to figure it out. And we're going down the bank fishing, proper cover. And we're looking at the graph, and the next thing you know, we're chasing these fish, throwing the jerk baits, looking at the jerk bait. So that's pretty cool. You can see the jerk bait. Look at the fish following the jerk bait. Oh, there's a fish. Blah, 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 blah. The next thing you know, we look up, and we're like 150 yards offshore heading towards the middle of the lake, because we were following the fish.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, that's kind of
looked up.
That's kind of what we're talking about here. We're talking about following the fish.
Yeah.
Right?
So on that point, now you're following these fish that are constantly moving. The next problem is getting to them and presenting a bait, because a lot of these fish are suspended underneath the schools of bait fish, which is only 9 or 15 feet down.
Yeah, not real deep.
And you can see that guy who won the
Some of them are deeper.
The guy in the tournament in the first part of the day, he was fishing in 45 feet of water, and he would throw out and he would get a bite, and he would set the hook, and the fish would jump instantly. So he was only catching it 4 or 5 feet under the surface, because the fish would jump, like he'd set the hook and the fish would be out of the water instantly. So, in the morning they were real high on the water column feeding on the bait fish, and then as the day went on, the bait fish went deeper and the bass went deeper.
It's constantly in flux.
Talking with Greg De Palma, he was like, I need heavier jig heads. I need heavy jig heads, because these fish are outrunning my jig heads. I'm making a cast to where I think the fish are going, and by the time I get to where my bait gets to where the fish should be, they're already past it by the time it sinks to when it's going there. So, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the Demiki rig, the finesse jig finesse fishing. And then some of the things you got to worry about is, getting to the fish, presenting the bait through those fish, and what kind of cast would you use? What kind of terminal tackle would you use? What kind of rod would you use? What kind would you do that? But it was neat talking with Greg saying I need a half-ounce jig head, because by the time my bait gets to where those fish are, they're already past it and they're gone, and I'm just not catching as many as I should be catching. So we sent him some half-ounce and some 3/8-ounce jig heads, and hopefully he used them, and hopefully he caught all his fish on that stuff, which would be cool. But whatever it was, I'm sure he was drop shotting a lot too. But present the bait through that cover, and to be able to control your bait in the depth of water you're at, you're re-rigging a lot, or you're rigging up 2 or 3 rods ahead of time to do it. So
one of the things that John Cruz said that was interesting was, and it's kind of getting back to, is there other ways you can catch fish? And there's a lot of vegetation in Champlain.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was saying, which I thought was interesting, it wasn't that the fish weren't in the vegetation and all that stuff. It was about the efficiency.
Right.
You could cover more water and put your bait in front of fish that you knew were there, or you could hope that you were placing a bait in front of fish in the vegetation. Right.
Make a million casts to catch fish that you didn't know that were there.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Because you don't think about that. Because another pro, I think it was Cliff
Prince,
not Cliff Prince,
Pace.
The Golden Ram.
Perch.
Cliff Perch.
Oh,
he
yeah.
was saying, for anybody that's coming up to Champlain, he's like, look, there were so many ways to catch these fish. If you would take one of your splash hits, you'd catch all the 3.5s that you wanted.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to give you the bag that they were catching.
Right.
So that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Well, and the other aspect of it was in that particular tournament, there was to your point, there was a great bite for largemouth. They weren't as big as the smallmouth. It wasn't that nobody was fishing for largemouth. They were having a day that we would love to have, but it's not paying the bills.
Wasn't good enough.
It's not paying the bills. So, this is not like,
I'm fine with catching 3.5-pounders.
How about it?
Yeah.
Want to splash it?
How about it?
Are you kidding me? I'm good with that.
The
other way to fish is frustrating as hell.
To me, the only thing it is that if you have this technology, this time of the year where you live, just all we're saying is turn the boat around and start looking.
Mm-hmm.
You got nothing to lose. You got everything to gain.
Mm-hmm.
Just start looking.
And you know what's cool about that, George? I seen something. You were talking about something you've seen. Something I seen was, how far are you comfortable setting that forward?
It depends on the water
Usually
clarity.
I would go tops 100.
Yeah.
But I felt more comfortable at 80. To be honest.
I love 75.
I seen these guys at 130, 100.
Well,
first of all, tell them, Mike.
2 things are happening. Number one is the clearer the water is,
a big difference.
The further out you can go.
Big difference.
It makes a huge difference. And number 2, if you're running the right power, and that's the problem. If you're watching, see, George and I, when we watch the graphs, and we look at things like, what's their voltage?
I mean, I'm seeing guys.
What's their range that they're on? I don't give. Yeah, we're looking at the range that they're on and all that kind of stuff.
I was seeing guys on that Champlain tournament with 13.6 volts at the end of the day.
What do you got?
It depends on the day.
We're pissed.
But 13.6 volts.
We can't get more than
13.6 volts at the end of the day in that clear water. You can jack that sucker out there pretty far.
That's a huge deal.
We're already $1,700 in and can't get anything over 12.3.
Well, it's not quite true yet. 12.6. But
12.6 for about half an hour, and then it goes to.
Well, that's on one boat. The other boat's a little higher, but that's
bullshit. I'm ready to unbutton the whole thing and throw it back in the water. Go back to my.
I'm sure there's some people listening on here that would take it from you.
You can have it, because I'm going back to my Fish Eagle, Lowrance black and white, 4-inch screen. Look, he doesn't want to bitch about it on public TV.
Well, I you tend to generalize things, which is fine. I don't really care. I don't make the fucking. I don't make the things.
Oh,
I use them, so I don't really care.
I don't either. But I'm saying that's what it's about. You're seeing the reason why these guys are seeing these things the way they're seeing them because they got incredible amount of power.
Yeah,
and it's clean, good power,
and it's awesome.
And
but when you get in clear water like that, it's pretty impressive.
It is like Raystown Lake. The last time I was up at Raystown Lake, I had George's boat, and it wasn't even 100% set up right. It wasn't. We're still kind of struggling with battery power, and honest to God, it was 100% better just because the water was cleaner. You know what I'm saying?
South Jersey, back to the paper graphs. I'll tell you what, South Jersey.
Hell, I'm telling you, some days, man,
I burned.
I want to unbolt some shit.
South Jersey. I don't know how old you are or if you ran them, but I burned them.
Telling you,
I burned boxes of rolls of paper.
I wonder where they are.
And
I like to look.
And the stylus.
You got notes on them.
You know what it reminds me of is the lie detector, the stylus.
Yeah.
George, do you still have the printout?
Is there a fish on that brush pile? What's your name? Are you running 7.4 to 1 ratio? I'm telling you, dude.
Is that a large mouth or a small mouth?
I burned rolls. The worst day of my life was when I hit a wave on the Thousand Islands, Lake Ontario. I hit a wave so hard that I broke the gimbal knobs out of the side of the unit. And I was devastated. Oh yeah, I mean this thing looked like
Tennessee Chrome, baby.
I mean this thing was tied up, man, 7 different ways from Sunday, but I mean you got so and I now it's the way I am with my forward. You get so dialed into it. Like my paper graph spoke the truth. I mean, yes, we are going to catch a fish on this next cast.
George, how did you set up for that? Because you had to have paper. So where did you store it? How much did you store?
Well, one roll of paper. I mean, you never used a whole roll of paper. I mean, one roll of paper. You know the fax paper?
Yeah.
Remember fax paper? Yeah. The shiny roll. That's what it was.
Okay.
Like if you have a fax machine from the old days, on the roll.
Yep.
That's the same. It's the same principle.
Okay.
Only this used a stylus. That used, I don't know what it used. That sound. Burned it in the paper.
George, do you still have boxes of your printouts?
I do.
Nice.
I do. I have.
I wonder where those things are.
We should get them out and look at them.
Because they have notes and stuff on them, and
we definitely need to see that.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's pretty cool stuff. We would stop and write something on the open up the thing and write a note on there.
Yeah, yeah. Like this is something point, and 15 foot.
Bass Morse code.
Yeah,
that was good stuff. And if you don't have forward facing, I mean, let's face it, side imaging.
God, side imaging nowadays.
Side imaging. Period.
It's phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Or if you have a 360, nothing to sneeze at, people.
Or George, is it? So obviously forward imaging is different, but what's the huge difference between when we used to use 2D and just drop down to it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Problem with that was you only saw such a little piece of water.
Right. But I mean,
that was
have the forward imaging.
But I mean, if you marked fish, we caught a lot of fish.
Yeah, we
out
did.
There.
We caught a lot of fish off of it, and and that was you're able to do that, but you were looking at such a small piece of water.
1 and 4.
Yeah. So Now with side,
20 foot of water, 4 foot of bottom.
That's honestly
5 foot of bottom.
That's why they came out with side imaging, because your 2D was only looking at such a small piece. They wanted to shoot out the side so it would change. You know what I'm saying? That's the only reason we have side imaging, because it gave you more of water to see. So, and then from there, they went to this imaging, which is live imaging, and where you could instantaneously scan a very huge piece of water just by moving your foot back and forth on your trolling motor. So it's all about how much you can see. That's all it is.
What's interesting, guys, is, when you do mark those fish, right? How are you going to put a bait on them? Now, this technique that we're going to talk about tonight, which is Jig Head Finesse, is actually born of the days of there was no such thing as forward facing. And you marked a school of fish that was suspended off of a point or off of a ledge, generally speaking, from late fall to early pre-spawn. Okay?
It was a cold water.
It was the end of the season to the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Before they went up to spawn, after the fall feed.
Yep.
And you would mark these fish. You'd mark them on your graph. You'd see them. How many times back in the day when we were fishing offshore in our young days of learning offshore, I used to always keep a 3/4 ounce Hopkins shorty at the ready. And every time I'd mark a fish, which was now straight underneath my boot, I would drop my spoon on them and try to catch them. And I'd watch my spoon skipping on my deucer, on my screen. So now we have some fish located, they're 25 feet deep. They're over 50 foot of water. And, these crafty fishermen said, hey, wait a minute, they're eating little bait.
Yeah.
So the Demiki rig was born. Now, Gussie calls it moping. I read something the other day. Somebody calls it a Cindy rig. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a jig head. But the key is, Mike, and me and you kind of screwed this up back in the day when we tried to learn this. The key is, Mike and Nick, the jig head needs to have a 90-degree eye. What we need is some backdrop here. Here we go. How do you like that, Mike?
I like it.
That's called improvising. See that 90-degree eye? That's what we mean by a 90-degree eye. Okay? And the reason why is, you want that bait horizontal. So it's kind of like the same concept as your drop shot with your hook coming out. You want the bait horizontal.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can float a drop shot down through them and do the same thing.
Yeah.
You can, but the key is to pendulum the bait down through the fish.
Correct.
So you kind of, in your mind, you paint your picture. Now, if you have forward facing, it's a whole different ball game. But if you don't, and when our pioneers discovered it and mastered it, you'd make your cast, you'd figure out your fall rate, And what happened with Demiki rigging, guys, is these style of jigs, like this is a well-respected Demiki rig jig head. They make this up to an ounce. To your point earlier, Mike.
Yeah.
About getting the bait down to the fish. Wind. Deep. Challenging conditions.
There was also a vertical presentation too. They would get over the fish, and especially in the winter months when it was super cold, they would get over top of the fish and drop it straight down and just barely. They wouldn't move it. They would just leave it there.
But that's the whole thing.
And every now and then in the colder water, they would just lift up like this and put it back down, and the fish would suck it in and eat it. But so that's the whole idea behind it, is to get your bait to go through the fish. So with forward facing, you could throw it out, you'll see your bait drop, and then you could kind of shake and reel your bait back and keep it in the strike zone much better.
So the kind of baits we're talking about are, you know, they can have a fork tail on them like this, right? They can have a straight tail on them like a Bass Assassin. Remember the old Bass Assassin? I mean, that company was ahead of their time. They could be bigger, right? Look at the size comparison here. So, you know, depending on what size bait you're on, same company, 2 different sizes. There's a Jackal. Whoops, he gone. Here's a Jackal Rhythm Wag, perfectly designed for that technique. These are Z-Man scented jerk sheds. But look at the different sizes. So the thing about this technique is that I think, you know, we talked about it earlier, that we wanted to get across to you. It's extremely easy fishing. There's no black magic here. There's no learning curve here. But the biggest thing that you want to do is when you identify where your fish is, you want to get beyond them. If you have forward facing and you can see them, great. If you don't, you're 2D, assume where they're at, go beyond them. And then your biggest learning curve is learning your fall on a tight line. So it's a pendulum technique. Now, what Mike said, at the end of the pendulum, now you're straight up and down. And if you see fish straight below you on 2D or on forward facing,
yeah,
whatever you prefer, or on down imaging, whatever your game is,
you just don't need to do a lot to the bait.
Just like less is more.
Less is more. You know what you see a lot of the guys doing on, you know, when they're fishing is shaking it as it's coming down. You know, they're shaking their rod as it's falling down there, so it's shimmering the bait as it's falling down. That's about as much as you got to do, and you don't even really need to do that. I've caught them already where I just threw it out and let it swing right through them. I've caught them that way.
I think the biggest challenge of this is getting the bait on the target.
And that takes some time.
It takes a little bit of time to learn your sink rates, but this is a really simple technique. I mean, you need a few different weights of jig. You need a few different sizes of minnow style bait, which you're going to use for other things anyways.
And I recommend you rigging up when you're going out to do this, or rig up a 1/8 ounce, a quarter and a 3/8, or depending on the depth of water, a 1/16, an 1/8, and a 3/16, or whatever type of water you think you're going to get. But have those rods all rigged up, and then you can have either different baits on them, or you could do whatever. But you could really mess with without having to retie and sit down and do all this stuff. You just pick a rod up and you can check your fall rates. Because, hey, what's the difference of throwing something out in a grass bed that weighs 3/4 of an ounce in 5 feet of water and getting that fast fall to get a strike, as it is to throw out there and get a fast fall through your reaction through your school? So who knows if that's going to be the bait. And like Greg was telling me, he said I needed a 1/2 ounce to get that bite, because I needed to get the bait to go down through it real quick and get to him real quick.
There was a couple guys last week that were fishing 1/2 ounce and going all the ways down, and it looked kind of ridiculous with this big giant ball head and this little bait on the hook.
Yeah.
But those fish were eating alewife, which is basically a bougie shad. They kind of, they're the elitist shad of the shad clan. They don't wear a dot. And, they're standoffish. They roam a lot. The entire top 10, save one gentleman, was Demiki rigging or moping or whatever you want to call it. The entire top 10, except for one person, was Demiki rigging. And that one person was fishing an underspin in the same manner.
Yeah.
So this is a powerful technique. This is a technique that speaks to all of us right now, because we're coming into September.
You got put those small scented shads on that moon eye for me.
On this?
Yeah.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, this is a September.
The key is
this
to
is
rig it
August,
straight.
September technique for sure, guys. And somebody wanted to see it rigged up. We're going to show you the rig here.
Well, the beauty of it is with this kind of jig head, once you get your Elastec rigged up, I'm now rigged up for the remainder of the year. I can catch 100 fish on this without fixing it.
That's it, guys. That's all there is to it.
That's a Neon Moon Eye from VMC.
Yep.
Quarter ounce.
Yeah. The other one we had here was the Guppy
Has
jig
about,
from.
what would you call that, a 2.0?
Yeah, that's a 2.0.
2.0 hook. Generally, you're not fishing a big hook. Now,
plenty of gap in it.
let's talk for a minute, guys, about tackle. And I think this is another beautiful thing about this technique.
Yeah.
We don't really need to do anything special here.
Yeah.
If you like to fish braid with a leader, great. If you like to fish straight fluoro, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you're not fishing around or in any form of cover.
Yeah.
So, I'm a big fan. I know Mike is too. I'm sure Nick is. I'm a big fan of 8-pound test fluorocarbon.
Absolutely.
I like to run a 15 braid.
I like a 10.
Okay, same difference.
Yep.
I'm a super slick guy.
I'm a V2 guy.
What kind of braid do you like, Nick, for your spinning reel?
I like the original.
Old school,
Pro.
the thicker one.
Yep.
More body.
Yeah, I'm good
Yeah,
with that.
I like that too.
Never thought you'd be like
And then I like a long leader, Nick. I'm going to be like 12, 15 foot.
When you said 12, you got my number
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. And
we fish the long leader. Love it.
we're trying to make a point here by making a point here, but it's not a crazy, like
Rick.
like last week we talked about BFS. Oh my God. I like a 7 foot, 7 foot 1 medium, fast spinning rod, which is kind of like my Swiss Army knife of spinning rods. And you know what? I have a 6.8 medium X-Pride that I love for it. It's not like a special. You don't need like a 7'5" light rod to cast a mile.
You're good with all that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a good drag because it's a small hook and a light line. And I'm a bit of a stickler on the drag.
I'm a stickler on the reel too.
We don't like this, do we, Mike?
No. I see that guys on TV.
Whoa,
man,
whoa.
That just fires me up, man. Listen.
You bought the wrong reel, son.
I sit there and I you know what I love about catching those big fish on that light line? I just love watching that drag go because I know it's going to slip when it's supposed to.
You see that drag running today?
Oh yeah.
Good Lord.
I mean, it's just and Shimano, you don't have to worry about it. Just don't have to worry about it.
You guys
Period.
ever do that back reel?
Hell
No, man.
We fish Shimano reels, man. Those things you don't have to worry about a thing. And Daiwa's starting to come out. I have a Daiwa MQ reel. It's a
you have the Kajak.
and let me tell you
That drag is impressive.
Super impressive. So they're right there too with the drags. But if you don't have a good drag when you're drop shotting,
buy a good drag. Buy a carbon drag washer.
You need a good.
Or I'll tell you what, the oiled felt.
The oiled felt is plenty good.
Super smooth.
Because it is going to be smoother for you. It starts up at a lighter pull rate. So some guys like that better than the carbon, but the carbon's awesome. So is the felt. So you got Daiwa and you have Shimano's, and I'm telling you right now, with Shimano's, you don't have to do that.
No, the Daiwas that we fish, you don't have to do either.
You don't have to do that. And that pisses me off. So
all I'm saying is if there was one requirement on tackle that really stood out in my mind, it would be drag. Because let's face it, you're catching some big fish out there.
Yeah.
And you got
small hooks.
And you got a little hook.
Yeah.
Okay, little hooks are great.
Great
you
penetration.
just can't lean on them too hard, okay?
Right.
You'll flex them. And you don't want them sticking. You don't want that drag sticking when that fish surges, because if it's a shock, you can break your leader. Then where are you at?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a complicated technique, but it does require confidence on the owner because you're not seeing what you're fishing. It's out there.
Yeah.
But you're looking at your box and you're like, okay, I got the sonar on here. I'm graphing this. Okay. And you're learning that pendulum. You're learning that fall weight. You're learning that 2D or that straight up and down with the forward and watch it. So it's not that hard, but there's a science to it.
And I wanted to give a tip for those that are using the forward. If you do have it, first of all, know your angle of where your cone is facing. Because if you throw an 80-foot cast, 50-foot cast, whatever it is, you need to know where your bait needs to be in that cast.
Yeah.
Secondly is you need to be proficient at your cast where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're constantly changing, now I'm at an 80-foot, what do you call it? Range. Now I'm at 100, now I'm at 50. If you're a weekend angler, it's going to be very hard for you to know where you need to be on your cast.
Yeah.
Be consistent with it. If it's 80 foot, George likes 75.
Yeah.
I'm more of an 80-foot person.
Yeah.
You almost become like a quarterback in football.
Yeah.
When you know that's how far.
Yeah.
And then you become impressive of like, oh shit, I just cast it right where that fish was or right past it.
Yeah.
If you're constantly changing your range,
Yeah.
it becomes
Mess with your distance. Like I know for a fact in the shop here, from back wall to front wall, it's 55 feet.
Yeah.
And
that's a long ways.
That's a long way.
It's a long way.
By the time I've seen people go that 55 feet right there and spend $3,000. I mean, that is a dangerous 55 feet.
It's a dangerous 55 feet, but the direction that this shop lays with the shorter side is 55 feet. But when you look at that and you're casting, that's what you need to understand.
I say it because if you don't make accurate casts by the time you get
or the right length of cast,
if you cast out 3 times, by the time you're ready, them fish, who knows where they're at.
Well, I mean, if you don't get the right pendulum in your cast, the cast is for naught.
Right.
It's like picking up a pice of grass on your bait.
It's like, all right, man, I did all this stuff. I got this freaking forward-facing thing. I spent $17,000 on almost setting it up. The batteries are right. Everything's perfect. I got 13.3 on my graph. And I go out there, and I got this great giant school of fish at 45 feet, and I'm only throwing at 32 feet.
And it took you 5 casts to get there.
Yeah.
Because like what's his name said from John Curado.
Yeah.
It's all about proficiency.
Yeah.
And efficiency. So if you're not taking advantage
if you're not knowing what you're throwing and what you're doing and the accuracy and where at the angle in which you're really looking at.
Well, and
it's all for naught.
And I like the perspective of the way you put it into like, okay, if you were here with us and we were talking to you, we'd say, okay, from there to there is 55 feet. It's just like when we talk about deep water.
Yeah.
A lot of times Mike will say,
don't
get freaked out by 30 foot of water because from there to there is 18 feet.
Yeah.
Or picture your boat standing on end.
Yeah.
And you have a 21-foot boat.
That's
how deep you're fishing.
That's it.
Add 9 feet to that.
30 feet is nothing.
So, develop your relationship to what you're seeing, to what is real world, and don't let it freak you out, and have some confidence.
And practice it.
Yeah.
Practice it.
Exactly. And like Nick says, don't be jumping all over the place on your depth range. Like in my world, I kind of heard what Nick said there, and I said, yeah, he's right. Because I fish a lot of shallow water, in shallow water with my forward facing, 70, 75 foot's like pushing it. But if I get to go up north, I go right to 100. Now I have to readjust my inner calibration because I spent the last 4 months fishing in 5 foot of water, 10 foot of water at 75 foot. Now I have to remember, hey, I'm on 100 foot here, because you get used to just like looking at the top of your screen and knowing that's 60 feet.
Yeah.
Well, now it's not.
Yeah.
So, cast a little farther.
Yeah. Cast
a little more accurate. Work on your casting, which, by the way, not for nothing, you should be a good proficient caster if you're a shoreline guy.
Yeah.
Because that's challenging, right? But yeah, I mean, my favorite heads, guys. I like the neon moon eye from VMC because VMC makes a good hook, and for this technique, and there's a lot of them. There's many more brands that we carry, and I like them all, but I really like that guppy head from Dirty.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I use them for a lot of other things, right? So I'll fish a little boot foot swim bait on there and swim it or drag it on the bottom. I'll use it for this technique.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a versatile head to have in your box. A lot of this technique is versatile. Mm-hmm. Like this bait is great for Demiki. It's a phenomenal drop shot bait. Phenomenal. We'll thread a straight shank hook on there and drop shot it.
I was just going to say, George, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about threading that on.
Yeah. It's just a phenomenal, versatile bait. Jig head, bouncing the bottom with a jig head in that in the cold winter months. I can't even tell you how many fish I catch bouncing this thing on the bottom. So a lot of what we're talking about is versatile tackle that you're using for other techniques. But I think what we really wanted to highlight was just kind of how easy this is, but it's the mechanics. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The accuracy of the cast, the pendulum, and watch that line. You're gonna lower your rod a little bit to maintain that the proper pendulum. It's not like you're lowering slack. You're actually lowering and maintaining a little bit of tension to get that pendulum. It's not just like cast out and hold it there. It's cast out, pick up the slack. A little slower than if you wanted a vertical fall, and you're going to get that pendulum. And this helps with controlling the bait at the depth. So you might have to hold it back up here. You might have to follow it down a little quicker.
You may have to reel a little bit.
These are all things that you have to get your timing down on. That's really it. That's really all it is.
That's it.
It's not that complicated.
I talked to a guy that fishes not a local lake, but a lake here where we're at in the Northeast. It's a deep mountain lake. And every year in August and September, it's a very, very difficult lake to fish in. And he was telling me about his success where he's fishing off the sides of points, way out off the ends of points that normally he would never go to. And they're all the fish go out there and suspend around the bait fish. And he's like George and I started to mess around with the Demiki rigging, and he said his hardest thing he learned was the pendulum. Making the certain distance cast to get the proper pendulum for it to go through the fish at the proper depth.
And that is,
what I'm saying?
That's true.
That was his hardest thing, was to be able to throw out and have enough line that it would get down to the 15-foot and pendulum through the fish at the 15-foot. Now this was pre forward facing, Nick. This was George and I started doing this 5 or 6 years before forward facing, or 5 or 6 years ago, before we had fish forward facing. And that was the biggest thing, is to make a lot of times you were just trying to get it to go. You were just trying to figure out, and you might have to make 3 or 4 casts until you actually caught a fish. Because and honestly, in my opinion, the 3rd or 4th cast, when you finally got the right cast, you know what I'm saying, and it pendulum through there at the perfect level, and that's when they bit it. So once you got dialed in, your boat's moving, of course. You catch the fish, the boat's moving, the wind's blowing you around, and you're trying to make that same cast, and it's just this.
Well, that's what I think so impressive. And it's one thing I don't think we get enough, or you can even take notice of when you're watching Bassmasters live or whatever, is how efficient they are.
Yeah.
Because yes, they see fish down there.
Yeah.
But the boat positioning that they're doing, the way that every cast is pinpoint.
Yeah.
Like there's no wasted anything.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
It is. It's impressive. I like the ones where they're messing with their trolling motor and it turns around like this, and they're like, oh shoot, and they just flip back behind the boat there.
Yeah.
and they just know that they went through with this fish, and they throw it back and catch
That's
a
pretty
damn
cool.
thing.
I mean, look, Brian. Look what Brian Thrift did with that jig at the dock and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah,
It's the same way.
same
It's
thing.
just
Just out there. Yeah.
Well, the other thing that's interesting about this technique, most of those fish are fairly aggressive.
Mhm.
So you'll generally get rewarded quickly for your patience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I would give it a shot. I mean, it got Cooper Gallant to the Classic. It got Gussie a Classic.
Yep.
It won Champlain last week. It won this year's Classic. I mean, it's so deadly when fish are on bait like that and they're suspended, and you can get your game down. It's so deadly. You know what I mean, Mike?
I totally feel it.
All right, boys, let's wrap that up. I do have a couple hand grenades for you.
Oh, love
I
that.
do.
Love
I
that.
do. Everybody tune in for the hand grenade
Love it.
segment. We should have like a bombshell to announce the hand grenade segment. Oh, my God. So bad. So bad.
I'll have a bombshell next time.
So bad. So bad. Stop doing that. I got two for you. The first is I read this in the Fishing Wire. Arizona is going to take a stretch of the Colorado River and spray it. Actually, it's not. They pour it in. They're going to poison it with rotenone. Rotenone will kill every fish that it contacts. All the fish will die in that stretch of river. Now, keep in mind, a river is a flowing thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know how far the rotenone will travel before it's rendered useless.
Why?
Because there's smallmouth in that river. Smallmouth bass. So smallmouth bass are in that river competing with the trout. So they're all going to be killed.
Let's kill everything.
Yeah, including the trout.
What in the hell?
Well, did you watch the debates last night?
Okay, say no more.
And from the Bass Blaster, and I really like this. We have an interesting NIL deal in college football. So we have Spencer Souders, quarterback, former last year he was quarterback for the Oklahoma Cowboys. Starting quarterback. Well, I don't know if he was starting. Somewhat starting. So he transferred in the offseason to, let me get this right. He transferred to Ole Miss. Big school. They came after him hard. They offered him a bass boat and a new truck. I mean, they also offered him several $100,000, but they sweetened the deal with a bass boat and a new truck. So,
Damn.
my man Spencer Souders, Basson brother.
Hey, they got him with the bass boat.
Listen, boys, he's going to be slinging the pigskin for Ole Miss, and that's a reason for us to watch and pull for Spencer Souders.
Wow.
Okay, so
Good stuff.
that's my hand grenade for you this week.
Beautiful.
Let's kill every fish in the Colorado River to eliminate. And it's not just the Colorado River. They're the West Coast rhymes with gibberels. They're killing everything because of the salmon. So their theory is kill everything that rhymes with smallmouth because of the salmon. So I mean, this is a whole new form of fisheries management. Kill everything to protect your favorite fish because they're non-native. So
wow.
All you people in Oregon and Washington and California that are watching, I apologize profusely. To the ones that get it. That's it, boys. That's all I got for you.
Good stuff, George.
Yep. Nick, you got anything else, buddy?
No, but I mean,
When are you getting your boat? Everybody's asking.
well, hold on. I am getting my boat, but the way George is talking about like scholarships and boats and trucks, I think I'm going to do like an Adam Sandler movie and go back to school.
Back to
You know what
school.
I mean?
I know.
Well, I told you on last week's show that our other podcast, we wrote an NIL deal with a Millersville University linebacker.
What was it? A case of beer?
It was every month he got a 6-pack of beer, a dozen wings, and a tin of Copenhagen.
Yeah.
I mean, a sleeve.
Sleeve.
But he didn't take you up on that.
No, he didn't. He went,
he
you know what he
dropped
did?
out.
Dropped out of school and
Dropped
went,
out of school.
became a union concrete guy. And you know what?
Nothing wrong with that.
Making a hell of a lot
Making
more
a
money
hell
than
of
he
a lot
was
of
in his
money.
But
football career.
he
Yeah.
could have had Copenhagen.
You could have had it.
And
Yes.
Miller Lite
Miller Lights.
and Union Station Grill Wings.
But no, by this time next week, I will have a boat
Yep.
and I'll be ready to roll.
You'll be ready to go fishing.
That's right. Let's go.
That's a beautiful thing.
And by this time next week, we'll be one step closer to the first ever Tackle Shop Live NIL deal.
Well,
It's going to happen.
Nice.
thank you guys so much for stopping in tonight. We appreciate it as always. Stay with us for next week.
Next week, we're
Thursday,
going to get
7
real
o'clock.
small.
Yeah, we're going to get real small. And until then, we'll see you at the next Tackle Shop Live. John, how are you, buddy? Oops. Hi, Johnny. No music playing all night.
That's just for him.
Hmm?
That's just for him.